So in this tutorial, we're going to take a look at how to add audio sources and listeners to your virtual environment so that you can create both ambient and 3D sounds. So first, we're going to start with the same virtual environment that we were working with in our outdoor lighting tutorial. So if you recall, we basically created this outdoor scene or imported it. We changed the skybox to a nighttime skybox. We gave the user a flashlight for their hand. We added this point light campfire. But when we play this, if you pay attention, there's no sounds. So it's a little eerie, especially when you start moving towards the campfire. Oh, in this case we cannot because we're outside of the tracking range. Let's go ahead and fix that for the rest of the tutorial by artificially inflating our tracking radius to 2000. So again, if you start moving towards the camping or campfire, in real life you would expect to hear some sounds. However, currently, because we have no sounds within our virtual environment and no audio listeners either, we don't hear anything. So the first thing that we should do is actually add an audio listener to our virtual environment. In particular, you want to add it to the main camera. So what we're going to do here, there is a possibility that depending on how the XR rig was imported, it may already have an audio listener attached to it, especially if it took control of a pre-existing camera within the scene. If you recall, however, for this particular tutorial, I had deleted any previous existing cameras and basically created the XR rig from scratch, so therefore it does not have any audio listeners attached to it. This is a simple fix. You just click add component, type in audio. You can actually type in audio listener if you want to, or just audio will get you the list, and you attach an audio listener, and that's it for listening. The next step though is we need to add some type of sound so that we can hear it. So the first thing that we're going to do is actually go find a sound. So for this particular virtual environment, I'm first going to add an ambient sound. So this will be a 2D sound that will not have any necessarily source or direction, and instead just generally fills up the virtual environment in terms of sound. So what I'm looking for here is some type of wilderness sound. I've actually went to freesound.org and I basically found this wilderness loop WAV file, which I've already downloaded to my local downloads. So I'm going to go into my Unity asset folder, and I'm going to create a new folder for management, and I'll just simply call it sounds. And I will go ahead and bring this new wilderness sound inside here. And it's now imported into my Unity project. And again, because the sound is going to be a 2D sound, it doesn't have any type of direction, it doesn't have a source, I really could attach it to anything within the virtual environment that I want to. Just for purposes of making things easy, let's actually attach it to my bonfire. So let's zoom in on my bonfire. And we'll go ahead and attach the sound here. Actually, let's not attach it to the bonfire because I will be attaching a campfire sound to it. Let's just attach the ambient noise to this rock. That should be fine. Alternatively, we could attach it to the virtual environment itself. So let's actually do that. So we'll add a component. You're going to add an audio source. And really the only thing that you need to set up for this is this audio clip. So we already have an audio clip here. This is my wilderness sound. We simply drag it into the audio clip here. By default, play on awake will be set, which basically means the sound will immediately start playing when the application starts. And because this is an ambient sound, I actually want it to loop when it finishes. So I'm going to go ahead and click loop. And the key thing here, what makes it ambient, is its spatial blend. If you'll notice here, it's set to 2D. Now, I obviously could change it to 3D. You can also change it. This is a continuous slider here, so you can even blend sounds if you want to, make them seem 2.5D, if you will. And you can watch what happens with the volume control here when you do that. It basically changes how loud a sound is depending on how far away you are from it. But I'm going to leave it on spatial blend for now, which basically means it's a 2D ambient sound. And I could adjust its volume if I want to, but if I recall correctly, the sound is already pretty light. So let's just go ahead and play this and see what my sound sounds like. So you can hear the chirping of the wilderness, and I can navigate around. And the key thing here is as I move through the virtual environment, you should notice that basically my ambient sound doesn't change. The direction doesn't change, and the intensity doesn't change. And this is exactly what we want from an ambient sound. Now, let's actually add a 3D sound, one that actually has a source, and we would expect to change in terms of direction and in terms of intensity. So for this example, I'm actually going to use the bonfire as the source of a campfire sound. So again, I have went to freesound.org and I have located a campfire sound. In particular, this one's called campfire_01, and I've already downloaded it. So now I'm going to bring it into my Unity folder, and here's the campfire. And now it's inside of my Unity project. Again, in order to create this campfire sound, I need to add an audio source. And because this audio source is directly corresponds to my campfire, I'm going to add the component to my campfire. So we'll have an audio source. We will throw the campfire sound in there. We want to make sure it's playing on awake, and we also want to make sure it loops. It would be fairly weird if we had a crackling campfire and then all of a sudden it stopped crackling. And then again, the key thing here is I want this one to be 3D. So I'm going to move it to 3D. Now, as you can see here, there's plenty of other options I can mess with. I can play with the volume, the pitch. With the 3D sounds, I can actually change it from a logarithmic roll-off, which basically means that the intensity drops off fairly quickly, but then it maintains a certain degree of sound up until the maximum distance, which is currently set to 500 feet. I could easily change this to linear roll-off. However, in general, the logarithmic roll-off is the default, and for most sounds, it probably makes the most sense. But again, sounds have a certain artistic expression to them, so play with whatever you feel like makes the most sense and creates the most realistic atmosphere. So this sound should work, the campfire attached to our bonfire. And when we start the application up, let's go ahead and see what happens. So first, if we look around, so right now, you should notice that the campfire is only heard in our right ear. We actually turn further to the right until the campfire is to our left. You can now primarily hear the campfire a little bit in our left ear. And if we move towards the campfire, you should be able to tell that's getting louder. And again, because it's towards my left, primarily here in my left ear, and if I turn around, you should now hear it in my right ear, because basically the campfire is to my right. Now, one thing that you may notice here is that the campfire is not very loud. And the reason for that is actually due to the audio source campfire file here. But unfortunately, we're already at the maximum volume. So you can't make this go up. I can make it go down. And notice I no longer hear the campfire, but you can't make it go above 1. Not here. So let me demonstrate how we can actually use an audio mixer group to increase the volume of our campfire. So the first thing I'm going to do, really, this probably should be under a different folder, but for simplicity here, I'm just going to put it in my sounds folder. I'm going to right click. I'm going to click create. I'm going to create an audio mixer. Let's call this audio mixer increase volume. If you double click on that increase volume, a new window will automatically pop up called Audio Mixer. And we have a master here. And this master basically determines how the volume of any inputs are mixed with this audio mixer. Now by default, it's set to 0 dBs or decibels, which basically means whatever incoming decibels are, it will keep them at the same level. But as you could tell from that sound, it wasn't very loud, so I actually want to increase it quite a bit. So I'm going to push it all the way up to 20 decibels. Hopefully this isn't too loud. And then let's make sure that we have this audio mixer, which again we named increase volume, properly set on our audio source. Notice here there is not an audio mixer group. If we use this little click box, we have the ability to choose the master under the increase volume audio mixer. And that's now set, so if we press play now, you can immediately tell that the volume of the campfire is much louder. In fact, perhaps a little too loud. As we get closer, it really starts sounding like a large campfire. Probably a little too large. In fact, I would probably change our volume. Actually, let's do this here one time. Go back to our audio mixer on our master. Edit play mode. Let's lower this down to 10 decibels. And that actually probably sounds pretty good. So in this tutorial, we've demonstrated both ambient noises and 3D spatial noises or sounds, in addition to audio mixers and how you can use an audio mixer to increase the native volume of a sound clip. And this should get you started with the homework requirements. Thanks.